Could I get Dave Towne and Louis Larsen to come up to the stage, please?
Hey, Louis.
So we're gonna do a little stage showing here because we need a couple mics, I think. But the reason we're so excited about this is because this was going to be a little fireside chat where we talked about some of David's, little moments in time that created. Thank you. That created consternation with his friends, and. When we started this process, we said, so what would David want us to do? How would he want us to do all of this? And then we said, okay, let's do the opposite of that. And let's get two people up here. It won't be a roast, but it will be sharing some small stories that hopefully you haven't heard. And we got a call about 3 days ago, and this amazing man said, I would really like to be there. And we're like, are you kidding? We would love to have you there. So first and foremost, let me introduce Louis Larsen, who was the event coordinator at the World's Fair, Century 21, who has joined us. Who has joined us at 97 years old. So we're very happy about that. And this other guy here, Dave Towne, because we don't really care about Dave, we really love Chris. The beautiful one, as David would say, David Hughbanks. Dave Towne and I go back very, very far, and I was reminding David that while he was out saving panda bears all over the world and flying to China, I was trying to get a job at the zoo and they never hired me. And I said, big mistake, just big mistake. He said, I didn't know that. And I said, yeah, it's true. It's true. I just desperately wanted a job at the zoo. So our good friends here are going to take some questions and they're going to share some improv moments with us about some stories with David Hughbanks. And let me make sure this is all working. I'm going to hand you that one just for a second here. There you go. And I'm going to stand up here so you guys can see the real talent here. And just start some questions and get her going. So first and foremost, Mr. Louis, we're so glad you're here. So we are so we're bated breath for you to tell us, how did you find out about David Hughbanks? And when did you hire him and why did you hire him?
Well,
It's on. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I knew of the name Hughbanks and Jasperson on Market Street, where I used to buy a lot of gas. So when they sent me Dave Hughbanks, that was the first question I asked him. He says, yeah, he says, I'm from Ballard. And I said, well, in case you didn't know it, the general manager of C21 Corporation was a fellow by the name of Ewan Dingwall, and he was a 1935 graduate of Ballard. I was a 1942 graduate of Ballard, and here comes Hughbanks. So it was a cinch deal. He was hired immediately. The fair at that time, I had three jobs at the fair initially. Number one, I started out as the assistant director of public relations, assistant director of exhibit sales, and then I put together the proposed advance ticket sale, which was supposed to be $2 million, and we sold $10 million of advance ticket and paid off all the underwriters plus percentages. There's some interesting things about the fair. People ask, well, why was the fair so successful? Well, one reason, there hadn't been a fair in 21 years. Number two, the fair was something that somebody hadn't hadn't been in the Northwest. This was the Never Never Land, so it was their opportunity to come west. There's some other interesting things in the people that I contacted for exhibit sales. I contacted the vice president of marketing for Minneapolis, Honeywell, and after I'd made my presentation, he scratches his head and he says, "Is it Seattle or Spokane that's on the ocean?" So we had that battle to start with. But Dave Hughbanks came over from the employment office and talked to Willis Camp, and Willis said, "I'm sending a good-looking guy over there." He says, "I think you might want to hire him." So anyhow, Dave shows up, and there was no doubt about it in my mind. And we had a long conversation, and I told him, I said, "You're hired." But I said, his title was Administrative Assistant to the Director of Special Events. And there was, I could tell dozens and dozens of stories, but one of the first assignments was to finish up, there was a medieval feast and a event over at the Opera House, and it just ended. And Dave come back and he said, "You know, there's 15 cases of Bass Ale there, and I don't know what to do with them." I says, "You bring them to my office."
So you started this. You started this life around alcohol.
You led him astray, is that it? I don't think it took too much leading. Let's see, David.
Louis, so when you gave him that first job, first and foremost, my notes here say, ask him, did he meet Elvis Presley, John Wayne, Prince Philip, Shah of Iran, and Walt Disney?
Well, Elvis was just an ordinary guy like everybody else. The movie was a B movie, of course. 2 years later, this is an interesting story because we were hungry for any event that would give us national public relationships. And 2 years afterward, Elvis came to do a concert in the Coliseum, and I was standing with the colonel down at the south end of the thing, and he says, looks right at me, and he says, "You know, you guys left a lot of money on the table." And I said, "Oh, really? What did you mean?" He says, "Well, we were prepared to pay for everything, all of the expenses to put the movie together, and you came along and paid for everything." So that's it.
Wow. Wow. Well, my mom would differ. She would say that that was an A++ movie because she loved Elvis Presley. So I want to talk a little bit about how we got David to the zoo, and what did that look like to you? Why was David so instrumental in the zoo?
He actually helped me change the zoo. I'll never forget of course, we go back before the zoo. I've been involved with him for about 50 years, almost as many as some of the comments that have been here. I really have fond memories of him, but it goes before the zoo. He and I were very good friends, and I always called him the man about town. I also fell in love with his mother.
Yeah.
Ruth reminded me so much of what C. David was, the same spirit and so forth. So I was fortunate. He and I never could really hold jobs. I went through, I listed about 8 or 10 different careers that he had and I had, but we always stayed in touch. But when he had Blodell and I had the zoo, we became even closer he was instrumental in creating a atmosphere that included the youth, the young leaders of the community. He insisted, well, as you know, David didn't take direction very well. And
Understatement.
he always ended up being probably right.
Yep.
But he created the Savannah Club, which was a way to involve young, upcoming leaders in the community. And I told him it would never work. And it did. Within a year or two, he'd already recruited something like 200 or 300 young folks to be members, and we had parties.
Yeah.
He was a real party guy. But I want to really recognize what he did, not only for me, he was a friend. I tried to take his advice. Sometimes it was difficult, but he always forgave me if I didn't. So.
Dave, so you also were members with him at the Skunk Bay Lighthouse. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, he was one of the founding members of Skunk Bay. I think there were 8 or 10 original owners that bought this lighthouse up near Hansville. And he invited Chris and I. We were kind of dating at that time.
This is the story you need to hear. Go ahead.
Sort of dating. But anyway, he was close friends with both of us. But he invited us up for the weekend. And one thing led to another. And as usual, Chris has got strong opinions. Sometimes I do. So we were kind of fighting back and forth after having quite a few drinks and dinner. And he finally said, "I've had enough of this." He said, "I want you two to go into the bedroom, and don't come out until tomorrow morning."
Ta-da!
He later became our best man at our wedding.
I love that. Yay! He always had an angle. Louis, tell us a story that we don't know about David Hughbanks.
Well, I'm going to comment on Dave that we had property on the beach just down a road from the lighthouse, and so Dave used to go by, and it was always nice when he had the top down and his mother was back there. She's a charming lady, and he should be proud of that. Well, Dave, his role was supposed to be administrative assistant to the director of Special Events Department. We had 11 people on the staff. Most of them were old enough to be his mother. But I sat down with him one day and I said, "Dave, you really haven't had a job in your life before." I said, "You got 6 months here to prove that you can do some things." And he certainly didn't let us down. But I told him, "I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll teach all the ropes that I can for you. And when you leave here, I hope you have enough credibility to find a permanent job." Well, we got towards the end of the fair, and we hadn't addressed the closing ceremonies like we should have. We assumed that the president was going to be there, and he was until the last minute, where Emory Roberts, the Secret Service agent, came to me and he said, "The president has a bad cold and he won't be able to make it." Well, the bad cold was the Cuban Missile Crisis. But David took that project on and did a remarkable job. And I told him that proved that he had the ability to go almost anywhere and do a credible job. And I was extremely proud of Dave and what he developed. He and I became friends for the next half a century, and just a few weeks ago, we were going to get together and plan my birthday party coming up for the 99th birthday, but unfortunately, I never heard back from him.
Well, one thing I've learned in this process in talking to you is that you were an extraordinary mentor to him. You gave him passion and purpose about community. You established these direct lines to people that cared. You created community around him, and he passed those on to us. And so through you, I've been able to participate in ways. And David, through you, I was executive director of the Seattle Aquarium Society, and you helped create that. We did the Aqua Zoo Pass together. He didn't hire me, but I still did it.
What was your name again?
But the beauty of this is we have Louis and David here who are just, first of all, they are Renaissance men. They are true gentlemen. They care about their community. They care about their wives, their family, their daughters, their sons, the family that they pick. And so even more so in true great community, you help others and you bring new generations forward. And I'm a result of that, and I know many of you are as well, and some of our friends that we'll speak to. But we're so grateful for you. Thank you for you guys' time today. Unless there's one last word you want to throw down?
Well, I'm going to thank you for the opportunity to be here. It came at the last minute, but it's very gratifying and humbling for me to be invited up here. Thanks again.
Oh, my gosh. I'm coming to your 99th birthday party.
Lou, you've always been really important to see David. I know, because he never stopped talking about you. The thing that I wanted to add, after the fair, C. David became involved with creating an event at the center. It was called Bumper Shoot.
That little thing.
And I think it was the first year or the second year, I can't remember which, but I was head of parks at that point, and there was no budget for Bumper Shoot. And so he came to me, and over cocktails, and I can't remember if it was martinis. Martinis are very creative. But anyway, we put our heads together, and we involved all of the nonprofit groups, the dance studios, the art studios, so forth and so on. And he used his magic to involve all other folks to create what was to become one of the great celebrations in this community, Bumper Shoot. And Lou, I think you played a role in that too. So thank you.
Thank you.